Morning everybody, Sean Allison here. It's June the 17th, Friday. Heading out with Captain Matt Downs here. Got Monte Shugart. Got Heather back here.
Protect myself from the sun.
Applying some sunblock. The wind's nice and calm. We're leaving Port Aransas Harbor here. You see it's pretty calm. It's supposed to be 3-foot seas today. Red Snapper season is open to federal waters. We're taking out the dive gear. You see up there on the bow. Tanks back here in the back. But we're all gonna head out, try to shoot us our red snapper, get our limits of red snapper, fill the freezers up a little bit, and maybe shoot anything else that comes around that's worth shooting. And got a couple poles, do a little bit of fishing in between on the surface intervals. But looks like it's gonna be a nice day. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna be pretty hot. We're probably gonna be suffering a little bit in the heat, but hopefully it'll be all worth it by the end of the video here. But I'll talk to y'all in a little bit. It's hard to see with the sun on the other side, but when we come around here, we'll be able to see a little bit better. If there's any cobia here, we're looking for cobia. They'll tend to come up and come out around the boat. They'll just be a big gray shadow on the surface. They get pretty good size though. And there'll be a lot of times several of them. Tide's going that way, Matt. But they're very curious fish. They'll come up to look at the boat, and they'll be hanging out under buoys like this, any kind of stuff on the surface. And they'll come up, kind of swim out to the boat, take a look, and go back. If you have a lure ready, you can pitch to them and hook them pretty easily. A lot of times, though, you'll pull up, do 2 or 3 passes here. You don't see anything. Maybe throw a couple pieces of chum out. If nothing comes up after a cast or two, you kind of just move on to the next buoy. But don't look like there's anybody home here. Hey everybody, Sean Allison here. So we're at the dive site here, Big Red. This is an artificial reef. This was a rig jacket that was cut and reefed in place. There were other jackets from the surrounding area that were cut, brought to this location and reefed here. So there's several jackets. This happens to be one of the shallower ones at about 60 to 70 feet. I'm jumping in the water here with my daughter Heather Allison. That's her there. We're descending down the line. There's already a line because we've already dropped a marker line, and the 2 other gentlemen in the boat, the captain Matt Downs and a friend of mine, Monte Shugart, already went down and attached this line to the rig and did their first dive, came up, and we are the second group into the water here. So the line's already here for us. You can already see the rig coming up here. The visibility was pretty. So this rig's laid over on its side. You can see how long this is. There's a lot of structure to actually swim on this rig. And again, it's one of the shallower ones. There is a thermocline on the bottom where it's kind of a murk layer. You'll see that later in the video here. But the top here is pretty clear. A bunch of blue runners coming up, passing by. Big schools of blue runners above. Some barracuda in the distance there. Kind of looking around, seeing who's home, if there's any cobia. A lot of time the cobia will come up to you right off the bat. Again, a bunch of blue runners just everywhere. Crevalle there in the distance. Coming down to where the chain is around the rig so it doesn't chafe through the rope. We've got a chain. I'm going to take my backup bottle. This is just in case for emergencies. Someone comes up and needs a little bit more air. It's a little 13 cubic foot bottle with a regulator on it. I'm just going to attach that to a chain, leave it hanging there, just in case. I've never actually had to use that, but it's kind of nice to have it there. I'm also going to take my stringer and clip my stringer to this chain. I don't plan on stringing fish and carrying them around with me. My plan this dive is to get down at depth with my daughter Heather and get her some trigger time. She has trouble loading the gun, so I load the gun, hand her the gun, let her get the shots in. My spear gun getting tangled up there. My band's getting hung on the oysters on the rig here. But again, plan is get down there, let her get some trigger time. We're going to go just below 100 feet. Right here, we're at probably 70. We're going to go deeper, so I'm going to get the gun ready now. So then we get there, we can just start pulling the trigger. We have very minimal time at those depths. So we have to get down there, get our shots in quick. And she's only going to get, I believe, 2 shots in. before I take one shot, and then we have the surface. That's pretty much the end of the dive. 3 shots total. I could probably get another shot or 2 in if I were doing this by myself and just shooting. But again, I'm trying to teach her. She knows some of the basics of spearfishing, but I'm trying to let her get some trigger time on some snapper. She's never shot a snapper. So this is kind of a, you can call this kind of a newbie session. These gray triggers, man, they are some brave little guys. We don't even have any fish on us yet. We've shot nothing, and this gray trigger is just harassing us. Anyway, so we're swimming over the 70s. We're starting to descend, kind of swimming toward the side here. I'm looking down for grouper. Monty came up after his first dive, and he had a grouper, a pretty good snapper, and a grouper. He got it down a little deeper than 100, so it's one thing. I already know there's going to be snapper everywhere. There's a lionfish right there. Kind of poked at him a little bit. I already know there's going to be snapper everywhere. There's some sheep's head, striped fish we just saw. But I'm hoping for a grouper. Monty already got one. The odds of me getting one also are pretty likely. And just as a spoiler alert, no grouper come up. There's the sheep's head. I could have shot them, but I could shoot them with the jetties. So I'm not really going to waste my time pulling the trigger on the sheep's head. Again, we're here for red snapper. You can see the dirty water on the bottom here. And it was actually a pretty thin layer. We get down to about 115 feet before we hit the top of the murk layer. Bottom here is about 130, so the murk layer is about 15 feet deep. Offshore here, it tends to be 20 to 25 feet deep a lot of times. It kind of varies. Sometimes it's clear all the way to the bottom, but those days are rare. But here in this corner, there's all this structure here, and I'm thinking, okay, we can lay on top of this structure because those red snapper are down in that murk, and they're going to be coming up to take a look at us. We can hide our bodies back here on the structure and shoot outwards. So I give Heather the gun. I'm telling her, fire, shoot at one of these fish. Unfortunately, I didn't get it on video. Kind of missed it. I reload the gun. I give it back to her. She makes a second shot. She misses the second shot. Both shots she shoots over the top of their head. I signal that to her by waving my hand over my head that she kind of shot high. But she made her 2 shots. Now we're kind of running out of air and bottom time. So we've come up a little bit. We're kind of looking for some gray snapper or whatever. I'm going to load the gun and probably head back down and just shoot a red snapper and immediately bring him right back up again. Because I want to take something. I really don't want to go to the boat empty-handed. So she's had her opportunity to practice a little bit. She's got a little bit of trigger time. She's realizing that she's shooting a little bit high. So now I'm just going down, kind of getting the business. I want to get down here and just get a fish. So I'm signaling her. I'm asking her what her area is. There's 1750. So she has 1750 psi on her air, which is a little bit more than half. The boat's directly above us, so we don't have a long swim to get back to the boat. So we have just enough air. We're going to go down here and kind of bounce dive. Get down there, shoot one, and I'm just going to immediately bring him right back up again. I don't want to leave her by herself, though, so... and I don't want to be by myself, so I signal her to come with me. So now I'm dropping down head first. As soon as an opportunity presents itself, or if a red snapper swims up, I'm just going to shoot him. I don't need to go all the way to the bottom, but I do need to get down there where the snapper are at. And again, they're hiding down there in that murky stuff. You can't hardly see them, but when you get down there close, they hear you breathing. They know you're there. They're going to come out to kind of get a glimpse at you, and you better get a shot when they first come out, because they tend not to come back out over and over. So I'm kind of settling my way down the corner here. I'm already looking, hunting. Again, I'm hoping for a grouper, but I'm not really holding my breath on that. I'm just looking for a snapper at this point. So I'm touching down on the structure. I'm looking. I see some red snapper coming up out of the murk. Kind of the smaller ones are swimming around up above the murk layer. The bigger ones tend to be down there in it, and they'll just come out and take a peek at you. Here they come. See them looking at me. All right, this guy's giving me a good shot, and I took it. So I just start winding him in, pulling my cable to me, and start ascending. I've already pushed off the structure, and I'm already trying to take him upward. He's not fighting yet, but he's not. I didn't stone him. He's going to be fighting me here in a second. But he's a smaller fish. He's not really going to put up too much of a fight here. My goal too, when dealing with these fish, when he's going crazy like this, is try not to get finned. Those dorsal spines, as they're flipping around, they tend to just dig into the back of your hand, or they'll stick you wherever they land. So right now I'm just kind of dragging them behind me, trying to get up shallower to conserve air and bottom time and deal with the fish. Again, the stringer's up there at the chain, so ultimately we're heading up toward the chain where the stringer's at, so we can string this fish and potentially head to the surface. Now, he's messing with me a lot. He's flipping around. He's sticking me. And I really want to kind of get a hold of this fish here in just a minute and dispatch him quickly. If I dispatch the fish and he's not flipping around, sticking me with his fins and all that, you know, he'll be a lot easier to handle carrying up. So, but here I'm going to go ahead and take him. I need to get my hands into his gills and gill him really good. Once you get your hands into that gill plate, you just grab a fistful of gills. That fish, you got him. He ain't really going anywhere. You can take the knife out and just kind of brain him really quick and twist it and dispatch him. So after I dispatch this guy, and again, my daughter's kind of watching me do all this. I'm hoping she's kind of learning something from all this. So now I'm just going to basically throat the fish and start swimming back toward the anchor chain like I was already doing. Basically, I just stopped to kill the fish. We were continuing our route. But now I'm not really carrying the gun. Now that the fish isn't fighting, I've got him throated. The shaft is through him. It's pretty... It's a through and through, and the tip's teed on the back side of him. So I don't have to carry the gun. I'm just dragging the gun behind the fish. I'm just carrying the fish. And the gun is kind of connected to him, dragging behind me. So I bring the stringer up here, open it up, and I'll string the fish before I will actually remove the spear shaft. That way he's never not connected in some form or fashion. So I'll clip him off there, take my tip out. We're kind of low on air. We're out of bottom time. So ultimately, Heather and I are heading back up to the boat now. We're coming up. We're at about 15 feet, between 15 and 20 feet. So now I'm telling her, basically, we're going to stop here, and we're going to do our 3-minute safety stop. Alright, so we're getting into dive 2 here. We've come to the surface. We've been on the surface for probably an hour. We've geared back up. On our surface interval while we were up, Monty and Matt made another dive as well. They've come up. Now it's our turn again. So I'm over the side first this time. Heather's coming up after me. She's going to roll over here. Simple back roll. There was a pretty good current. You really got to grab that line immediately upon surfacing because the current was really trying to pull us away there. So again, heading back down the line, just kind of looking around. Some of the ends of the rig are kind of just cut off with the pipes sticking out. Kind of waiting for Heather to catch up with me here. So we go right back down to that, kind of back to that same corner again, because there's plenty of red snapper. I know there's some big ones down in that corner. Again, we can ambush them by hiding on top of that structure. And I want Heather to get some more trigger time in here. So we're heading back down. On the way there, we're kind of looking around. There's blue runners everywhere close to the structure, like usually in the corners. There's gray snapper all over the place. Most of the grays are kind of on the smaller side, so we're not really pulling the trigger on them. Again, we're looking for our red snapper here. But just kind of taking a look around the corner, getting the gun ready, taking the safety off and handing it to her. There's an amberjack comes zipping in. I'm pointing out some fish. This is kind of hard because as the fish are coming in, I'm pointing at them. She told me later she's not sure which fish that I'm pointing at. But I don't think that's so important as just, shoot at the biggest one you see there. But she's not sure which ones I'm pointing at, and then half the time I'm telling her to pause. This one here, she goes ahead and takes a shot. Goes right over the top of his head, almost hits him. I tell her, I wave over my head to tell her, yeah, you shot a little bit high. So I reload it again, hand it to her. See, she sees which one I'm pointing at, takes the shot, just barely misses that one. So I take the gun again. She's gotten her a couple of shots in here, and she missed them both again. So she kind of missed her opportunity on this dive to get a red snapper. She did get a little bit of trigger time. So again, we kind of went back up. I loaded the gun up shallower. We were looking for gray snapper, whatnot. Now we're toward the end of the dive. So I'm going to do what I did on the first dive, and that is just going to kind of dive down deep to that corner, basically shoot a red snapper, and immediately just take him back shallow with me. So I'm head down. I'm looking in the murk. I'm looking for red snapper to come out looking. I'm looking for the bigger fish. They'll tend to kind of stick together a lot of times. So I'm looking around. There's legal red snapper everywhere, but I'm kind of holding out for those, for something maybe 25 plus. So I'm looking at the murk. I'm trying not to be too picky though. As soon as one decent one swims out, I'm just going to take my shot. All right, so check my gauge, check my depth, check my air supply. I see one coming toward me here, and I'll take it. So shoot that guy. I'm already signaling her. Let's go up. Again, that pipe right there that we're next to is at 100 feet, so we're like just under 100 feet doing this. So I just start dragging him, start swimming up, pulling him up with me. You can see the difference in the watercolor there. It's kind of greener toward the bottom, real hazy on bottom like a cloud layer. Then it's kind of greenish right above that. When you start getting above that, the water actually turns kind of bluish, kind of crystal blue. So bring this guy up here. I don't want him struggling too much, drawing any kind of attention to me. It's best to pull your catch to you. Look at the trigger fish already coming at me. You don't really want these fish thrashing around too much. You don't want to leave them out on the end of the cable. If you're afraid to pull the fish to you, the barracuda and the sharks will come in and take that fish if you leave it way out there 15 feet at the end of the cable. You need to pull that fish to you as quickly as possible. Try to dispatch that fish and have it in your hands. And those predators generally will back off. They will not. I've never had one come try to take it from me. I've had some close calls, but never once I was holding on to that fish have I had a predator try to take it from me. So again, I'm going to open up the stringer. I'm going to string this guy up. He's getting kind of tangled up in my cable here, which I'm not really digging. But I'm going to get my hand in his gills, get my stringer, kind of poke it through his eyes. He's not a very big fish, but, you know, snapper's a snapper. I'll take it. So string him up and then end up taking my shaft out of him. It was a perfect shot there. Turn it back around, poke it in. Sometimes that's kind of hard to get back out, but that one kind of pops out. And we went back to the boat. I left Heather behind on this one, dive 3. I go back down. I've already got my limit of red snapper, so now there's an amberjack. Now I'm not really hunting red snapper. I'm just looking for gray snapper or African pompano. I would shoot the amberjack, but the season's closed. So I'm just looking for anything else maybe that I could shoot at that's worth pulling the trigger on. And I would say mostly what I'm looking for here is maybe some bigger gray snapper. Just kind of looking around though. Trigger fish, gray triggers coming up at me. Gotta like poke them off of me. They're pretty brave, especially after you've got a dead fish in your hands with the guts hanging out. They will come out. There's nothing you can do to keep them off you. But you can just see right here how clear the visibility is. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I'm at 60 feet looking down. The bottom's at 130, so I mean, it's just, you can see the murk layer clear as day there. Bunch of look downs, big school of look downs, kind of hanging out there. So I'll get on the surface here. We've got a clip. It's always a good idea to have a clip hanging off like this when you're diving, aside from your lines and line hanging off the back with a float. It's just a short line with a clip here. I can clip that to my BC. I'm going to unbuckle everything, pull my arm through, and force it off my back, get out of my BC. Now it'll make it a little easier to climb into the boat and get up there on the ladder, pull my fins off, climb out without the gear on my back. Then I can get in the boat, pull the gear to me with a rope, and then haul it over the side by hand. But that kind of concludes the diving for the day. Here's a group of us kind of heading back. We're all happy. We've got our limits of red snapper. But thanks for watching the video, and hope to see you on the next one.